Something big is happening behind closed doors, and it all seems to point toward one thing: Alberta. A province once known simply for its oil sands and cowboy spirit is now being quietly positioned, some say, to become the energy heartbeat of the entire continent. And the man rumored to be behind this plan? None other than U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, before you roll your eyes, this isn't just another rumor floating around the internet. There are whispers, patterns, and movements happening right now that have people in Ottawa and even in Washington, D.C., asking the same question: is Trump really turning Alberta into North America's new energy capital? Let's piece this together carefully. Over the past few months, President Trump's administration has made a series of quiet but very deliberate moves involving cross-border pipelines, new energy export routes, and security cooperation, all with Alberta right at the center. Meanwhile, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has been increasingly outspoken about her province's energy independence, often clashing with Prime Minister Mark Carney over Ottawa's federal climate targets. Carney's green agenda is pushing hard for a net-zero Canada by 2050. But here's the problem: Alberta doesn't want to wait around for federal approval while global demand for oil and gas is rising again. Now think about this. Trump's team recently revived talk of a North American energy alliance, something that could link U.S. refineries, Alberta's oil sands, and even parts of Mexico's extraction zones into one massive production network. If that happens, Alberta becomes the crown jewel. Here's why. Alberta sits on one of the largest untapped oil reserves on Earth. Over 160 billion barrels. That's more than most OPEC countries. Combine that with Trump's pro-oil policies, deregulation, and America's hunger to control energy markets, and you've got the makings of a geopolitical bombshell. Now, Danielle Smith knows this. She's been publicly pushing for more pipelines south, fewer restrictions from Ottawa, and private investment from U.S. companies. But lately, there's been talk that her conversations with Trump's energy advisors have gone far beyond standard cooperation. Sources close to both sides suggest there's a long-term strategy, one that could bypass Ottawa completely. Imagine this: Alberta producing, refining, and exporting directly under joint U.S.-Alberta frameworks, cutting the federal government out of major profits. Sounds far-fetched? Maybe. But if you trace the pattern, it starts to make sense. First, the sudden spike in American investment in Alberta's oil sector. Companies that had previously pulled out during the Trudeau and early Carney years are now quietly coming back. Second, Trump's new trade rhetoric, which oddly praises Western energy partners without naming Canada at all. And third, Alberta's recent legislation allowing the province to form direct bilateral trade and energy partnerships, something that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. All of these pieces fit together a little too neatly. Meanwhile, Mark Carney isn't sitting quietly. Ottawa is reportedly furious about what insiders call Alberta's shadow diplomacy. Carney, who built his reputation as a global financial stabilizer, knows what unchecked regional deals can mean. He's already hinted that any province bypassing national regulation could face serious consequences. But how do you enforce control over a province that holds the energy card, public support, and growing American backing? That's the nightmare scenario for Ottawa. And here's where it gets even more intriguing. Trump, during a recent campaign rally, casually mentioned a major new energy corridor being developed north of Montana. He didn't say Canada. He didn't say Alberta. But if you look at the map, north of Montana is Alberta. Coincidence? Or was that Trump dropping a deliberate breadcrumb? This corridor talk has been echoed by U.S. energy firms lobbying for continental pipelines, ones that could, theoretically, run from Fort McMurray straight into U.S. refining hubs. If Ottawa refuses to approve new projects, it's not hard to imagine Alberta finding alternative paths, maybe even with direct U.S. construction support. Now, think about how politically explosive that would be: a U.S.-backed energy project running through a Canadian province without full Canadian federal oversight. That would send shockwaves through Parliament Hill and maybe even across NATO tables. Danielle Smith has been careful. She doesn't confirm any secret partnerships, but her language has become bolder. She talks about Alberta taking its rightful place on the world stage, about working with true allies who understand energy freedom. True allies. Not Ottawa. If you read between the lines, it feels like Smith and Trump are moving in sync, both driven by the same philosophy. Energy dominance equals political independence. But here's where things take an even darker turn. Some analysts believe that this isn't just about oil, it's about control of the energy transition itself. Trump's administration is reportedly looking to secure rare earth elements and lithium supplies, critical for electric vehicles. Alberta, surprisingly, is rich in both. What if Alberta isn't just the next oil hub, but the next everything hub: oil, gas, lithium, hydrogen, all under U.S. partnership? Imagine the strategic power in that. Carney's green energy plan would be left in chaos. Federal revenues would collapse. And the political balance in Canada could shift permanently, with Alberta effectively operating as a semi-autonomous energy state aligned more closely with Washington than with Ottawa. And maybe that's the real play here. Trump doesn't need Alberta to leave Canada, he just needs Alberta to think independently enough to act as if it already has. Because once energy flows south freely and billions in U.S. investment come pouring in, the loyalty question becomes complicated. Would Alberta still answer to Ottawa? Or to the markets that pay its bills? That's the question nobody wants to ask out loud. Meanwhile, public opinion in Alberta is shifting fast. A growing number of people now say they'd rather see energy deals made directly with the U.S. than filtered through Ottawa's climate bureaucracy. Protests, petitions, and grassroots movements are already demanding economic sovereignty, words that once sounded radical but now echo in mainstream discussions. Ottawa is losing control of the narrative. Every time Carney speaks about federal unity, it only seems to strengthen Alberta's pushback. And then there's Trump, who knows exactly how to turn economic tension into political leverage. For him, an empowered Alberta isn't just about oil. It's about securing America's dominance over continental energy markets and showing the world that Washington, not Ottawa, not OPEC, still writes the rules. It's bold. It's risky. And it's exactly the kind of power play Trump is known for. So, what happens next? If Alberta continues to expand energy ties with the U.S. while Ottawa drags its feet, it could mark the start of a continental realignment unlike anything we've seen before. One where provincial sovereignty blurs, federal authority weakens, and the North American map, politically at least, starts to look very different. Trump's vision, if it's real, isn't just about energy. It's about rewriting the balance of power. A new North American order where Alberta stands shoulder to shoulder with Texas and Alaska as the energy triad of the Western Hemisphere. Sounds impossible? Maybe. But history shows that impossible things have a way of happening quietly, one handshake, one pipeline, one deal at a time. For now, Ottawa keeps insisting everything is under control. But deep down, even they must know if Trump and Smith are indeed aligning behind closed doors, control might already be slipping away. Because energy isn't just fuel. It's leverage. It's power. It's independence. And if Alberta really is on the verge of becoming North America's new energy capital, then Canada may be standing on the edge of its most defining moment in modern history, and it's happening right under everyone's nose.